Before we begin, I wanted to thank the Coos for sponsoring today's video. The Coos is a must-have app for every K-pop fan, where you can follow over 85 of the top K-pop artists and get all of their content in one place. Instead of having to browse through countless news sites, the Coos gathers articles from across the web in one place, which allows you to stay up to date with all of the latest K-pop news. Plus, it also contains quizzes, polls, group chats, and other interactive content, which makes it a great way to meet and interact with other K-pop fans. But best of all, the app also hosts a ton of giveaways. Can you believe it? You get to win K-pop merchandise through an app. So at the moment, they've actually got 2 giveaways going on. The first one is for the BT21 bag chains and dolls, and the other one is for the NCT We Young album. So what are you waiting for? Be sure to check out the Coos today. I'll be leaving the download link in the description down below. Hey guys, so I recently came across this video by Internet's Nathan, which pointed out a strange phenomena that many people might just describe as a curse, which has seemingly plagued many members of past produce group I.O.I. And with the disbandment of the next produce group IZONE just around the corner, it got me thinking, will the members of IZONE also succumb to this seemingly inevitable curse? Or could there actually be a way that these IZONE members could avoid this strange and unfortunate phenomena? But first, you guys are probably wondering, what is this curse that you're talking about? Well, you guys have probably all heard of Produce 101, the successful K-pop reality TV show which aired in 2016. The show featured 101 female contestants which competed through various performances, and the top 11 trainees ended up debuting in a temporary group called I.O.I, which lasted for a year. And well, I.O.I instantly became one of the top K-pop groups. They won awards, topped the charts, and the members' faces were plastered on advertisements across Korea. In fact, Produce 101 and I.O.I were so successful that it actually went on to air for another 3 seasons, which gave rise to other popular groups such as 101, IZONE, and X1. And so, considering the immense popularity of I.O.I, surely all of the members would go on to become top K-pop stars even after the group's disbandment, right? Well, that was what most people expected, but instead what we got was something that many may only describe as a curse, the Produce curse. Whilst the members that went on to pursue solo activities such as Chungha, Somi, and Sohye all went on to have pretty successful careers, the members that joined groups were seemingly not as lucky. So I'm just gonna briefly go through what happened to all of these post-I.O.I groups here, but if you'd like to find out more, then be sure to check out Internet Nathan's video, which I'll link in the description down below. Okay, so first you've got Kyo-kyung and Na-young, who debuted with Pristin in 2017. Despite the fact that Pristin had a great start to their career, they mysteriously stopped all promotions just a year later, before eventually disbanding in 2019. Next, you've got Sejong and Nina, who debuted with Gugudan in 2016. The group seemed promising at first, but they quickly lost momentum and eventually also ended up stopping all promotions before disbanding in 2020. Then you've got Yoojung and Doyeon, who debuted with Wiki Miki in 2017. Despite their unique concept, Wiki Miki has unfortunately not yet gained mainstream success, with most of their songs failing to chart at all. Meanwhile, Chaeyeon rejoined her group Daya, which debuted in 2015. Daya was a pretty underrated group, which is why some of the members decided to join Produce 101. However, despite the fact that Chaeyeon made it into I.O.I, things didn't change much for Daya, with all of their latest songs also failing to chart. The only member who seemingly defied this curse was Yeonjung, who was added to Cosmic Girls, a group that debuted in 2016. Compared to all of the other groups mentioned so far, Cosmic Girls is by far the most successful, with numerous music show wins and steadily increasing album sales. As you can see, there seems to be a clear pattern here, and I think Internet's Nathan summed it up best when he said,
"It does seem like a curse if you debuted in another group. It is scary to see how the members of I.O.I were so well beloved by the public, and then when they debuted in other groups, they were almost forgotten."
But what if I told you that there could be some explanation behind this curse? That the fate of these I.O.I members were actually somewhat predictable and avoidable. That's right, guys. After analyzing the careers of not just the I.O.I but also the WannaOne members after disbandment, I think I've managed to come up with 3 main criteria that not only explain but can also be used to predict who will and won't fall victim to the produce curse. I think that this is great news because it means that there are clear steps that the IZONE members and their companies can take to avoid succumbing to this curse. In fact, at the end of this video, I'm going to be using my criteria to predict which IZONE members are currently, as of April 2021, least and most at risk of being the next produce victims. So be sure to stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, let's go through the 3 main factors that I believe contribute to this produce curse. While the I.O.I members each had dedicated fans of their own, these individual fan bases combined would not have compared to the success that I.O.I enjoyed as a group. Because many people became fans of I.O.I due to the interactions and dynamics between the members. And so once the group splits up, things simply aren't the same and many fans lose interest. But more importantly, the bulk of I.O.I's success actually came from the general public. Casual listeners who might have heard of the Produce 101 show or liked a couple of I.O.I songs but did not care enough about each individual member to follow and support all of the activities after I.O.I, especially if it meant supporting an entirely new K-pop group with members that they had neither seen nor heard of. Unfortunately, many companies didn't seem to know this and they completely overestimated the impact of having an I.O.I member. It was almost as if they thought that just because they had an I.O.I member, it would automatically guarantee the success of everybody else in the group. But well, as we can see with Gugudan, Wikimiki, and Zaya, this was obviously not the case. In all of these groups, the company seemed to rely heavily on the I.O.I members to push the entire group forward, while the other members were pretty much just carried along for the ride and never really given the opportunity to shine. This problem often begins even before the group's debut and essentially gets worse and worse as time goes on. With Wikimiki, for instance, 4 of the members participated in Produce 101. Unfortunately, aside from Yoojung and Doyeon, the other 2 members did not do as well, and after they were eliminated from the show, they basically completely disappeared from the public eye. Throughout the next year, all the promotions were focused on just Yoojung and Doyeon alone. The next time we would even hear from any of the other Wikimiki members again was just 2 months before their debut. The situation was also pretty similar for Gugudan. Aside from the 3 members Sejong, Mina, and Nayeon who participated in Produce 101, none of the other members had any pre-debut activities. In fact, the other members weren't even introduced until just 2 weeks before the group's debut. Needless to say, by the time the group debuted, the I.O.I members were already vastly more popular and experienced compared to the rest of their group. And things only got worse from here when the I.O.I members were also placed front and center for every single comeback.
처음과 끝은 채연이와 채연이로 끝나기 때문에
엔딩이 전데 맨날 채연 언니로 끝나는 거예요.
In fact, the other members are often so overshadowed that many people still don't know their names.
자야 예빈 소미를 알아주시는 분들은 아직 없으실 것 같아서
정치원과 아이들로 많이 알고 계시더라고요.
And obviously, no matter how popular one of the members are, if you've got so many underrated members in one group, it's still gonna affect the overall success and longevity of the group. By contrast, if we look at the most commercially successful post-produce groups, we can see that they all share a common trait of providing their members with equal opportunities. Cosmic Girls, for instance, is a popular group in their own right, even without Yeonjung, with many of the members making a name for themselves through solo activities. And while Kristen has since disbanded, they were a popular group when they first debuted. And I honestly believe this is because Pledis did a great job promoting most of the members. Kristen engaged in various pre-debut activities as a group, such as releasing covers on YouTube, holding showcases, and even releasing a pre-debut music video. All of these activities would have solidified Priston's image as a group and helped many of the members amass their own fan bases. We can even see the same trend with WannaOne groups, such as Minhyun's group New West and Woojin and Daehui's group AB6, both of which have been thriving since the show. In both groups, 4 out of 5 members participated in Produce 101, and all of them did extremely well. Furthermore, while WannaOne was promoting, the other members made use of that time to engage in subunit activities. This helped maintain the members' current fan bases and kept them in the public eye. As you can see, the groups that promote their members more equally consistently fared better than the groups that only focused on the Produce members. And this theory seems to hold true for all the groups that came out of both I.O.I and WannaOne. Obviously, you can't expect all the members of a group to be equally popular, but if you want a sustainable and successful group, then at the very least, you need to have a few members with some level of baseline popularity, as opposed to just relying on 1 or 2 Produce members to carry an entire team. Not meeting fans' expectations is another major pitfall for some of these groups. The thing about being on Produce 101 or being in a Produce group is that it really shapes your identity as an artist and allows the audience to see what kind of concept suits you best. And while it's great for an artist to develop an image and identity so early on, a problem arises when their company has a completely different idea in mind. Unfortunately, this actually happened to Gugu Dan. So based off their performances on Produce 101, many were looking forward to seeing Jellyfish Entertainment debut their trainees in a Mamamoo jazzy type of group. But instead, what we got was Act 1, The Little Mermaid. Now, I'm not saying this debut was bad. I mean, it was a cute song, but it definitely wasn't what a lot of people were expecting. And I think some fans were actually pretty disappointed, which kind of led to a bad start for Gugu Dan. Of course, I understand that companies spend ages planning a debut and thinking about the type of concepts they want their group to have, but I guess they need to see it from an audience's point of view. You know, after having certain expectations and after seeing an idol do a certain image for so long, it's jarring to suddenly see them change their entire image. It's kind of like an identity crisis. So I think companies need to be flexible and ready to tweak their original plans to better cater to fans. Another potential problem that's perhaps harder to solve would be differences in budget and quality. The Produce groups such as I.O.I, WannaOne, and IZONE all have really high budget comebacks and top-notch production. I mean, just take a look at their live stages. I swear just that one outfit probably cost more than my entire closet. Needless to say, financial issues and budget problems are likely not a concern for these Produce groups. However, that all changes once the Produce groups disband and the members return to their original companies. As you guys probably know, Produce 101 featured a lot of small and medium-sized companies, and so it's no surprise that most of the members are from these small or medium-sized companies that don't have the resources or money.
티아라 선배님이라고 계셨었는데 이제 지금은 안 계셔가지고 이제 저희 회사가 좀 힘든 상황이 되었는데
Oftentimes, this results in a noticeable decline in the frequency and quality of the members' activities, especially compared to their days in I.O.I or WannaOne. And as one of my Patreons, Kia, stated, there is a risk that a lower budget music video, for example, might not live up to Produce fans' expectations, which might cause them to gradually lose interest. In some ways, having members from a Produce group can be a double-edged sword, because on one hand, it obviously provided that member with a ton of exposure and opportunities, but at the same time, it also leads to high expectations that many companies struggle to meet. I actually wanted to add that I think this could be a potential problem for IZONE especially, because unlike I.O.I or WannaOne, who have tried multiple different concepts, IZONE has really stuck to a luxurious and elegant type of image, and they've set the bar really high for the budget of their music videos. So I'm sure everybody has really high expectations, and unfortunately, this type of expensive, elegant concept is the hardest concept for small companies to pull off. I mean, just look at their music videos. How are most companies supposed to afford this? So this could definitely be a concern for the IZONE members who come from small companies. So we talked a little bit about finances in the previous section, but while finances are definitely a problem for all small companies, it is significantly worse when a company is managing a group compared to a soloist. And the more members you have in your group, the more expensive it gets because you have to pay for more people's transportation, housing, styling, etc. So the limited resources that the company has is essentially further diluted, which leaves less money for things like promotions and production. Additionally, because the cost of maintaining large groups is so high, many companies do not actually have the financial ability to support them long term. And as a result, these large groups are more at risk of being given up on or disbanded by their companies the moment they do not generate enough profit. And interestingly, if we look at the disbanded groups Gugudan and Pristin, we can see that they both contained many members. And coincidentally, with Pristin, they were even abandoned by their company the second their album sales dropped. Could this all have been a coincidence? Or could the high cost of maintaining these large groups actually play a role in their disbandment? In other words, if they were a smaller group that was cheaper to maintain, would they have lasted longer even with the same album sales? These are all questions that I found myself asking. Additionally, as we discussed earlier, many of these struggling or disbanded groups also shared a common trend of promoting only a few members while giving the others little to no spotlight. So this got me thinking, if debuting a large group is so expensive, and if most of the members in the group are just going to be underutilized anyways, then wouldn't it make more sense to just debut a smaller group with less members?
Duh.
Interestingly, if we once again look at the disbanded groups Pristin and Gugudan, we can see that they both attempted to debut subunits with Pristin V and Gugudan Semina after the group promotion started fizzling out. Sadly, these subunits often debuted too late, which is why they didn't manage to achieve mainstream success. But that doesn't mean that they didn't have potential. The members of Gugudan Semina, for example, received so much positive attention for their audition on Produce 101, and many people were anticipating their debut as a trio. Unfortunately, by the time Gugudan Semina actually debuted in 2018, 2 years had already passed and most of the hype from the audition had completely died down. But imagine just how successful they would have been if they debuted sooner. Furthermore, if you take a look at who's in these groups, they were all the most well-promoted members and were clearly the members that the company cared most about from the beginning.
Some of y'all about to be real mad at me, but it must be said.
Personally, I feel like these companies knew that they were about to give up on the group, and so they just wanted to kind of, I guess you could say, save the most popular members by doing this subunit and seeing how it goes. Allegedly. Which essentially means they were already leaving the rest of the group behind. So taking all of this into account, I think it would have just been more beneficial if the company had debuted just the subunit members from the start instead of creating these large groups where most members barely had any lines or screen time. Now, before you cancel me, I'm not saying this because I think that the other members are untalented, but rather I feel like some of these companies just threw all of their most talented trainees into a group without actually planning what each member's role was, as well as how they were going to stand out while they were in the group. And so what you ended up getting was members with overlapping skill sets, which means that some of them got completely overshadowed and underutilized. And you know, it's such a waste of their talents and time.
I'm gonna swing from the chandelier. And everyone's in the casket. Let's go. What the?
So I think debuting smaller and more well-planned groups would not only be cheaper and more sustainable for the company, it would also save the other members time and allow them to pursue opportunities in other companies where they would have been more valued. Of course, I'm not saying that existing groups such as Daya or Wikimiki should just kick people out. Of course not. Fans have already bonded to all of these members and they all form an integral part of their group. But I think that going forward, if the IZONE members companies want to debut large groups, they should make sure they have plans to promote each member equally and ensure that they actually have the financial capability to support a large group. So these are the 3 criteria that I came up with. I actually tested them on all of the post-produce groups, and I've come to the conclusion that if you check 1 or 2 of these boxes, it isn't really a make or break, but if you fit all 3 criterias, then, well, yikes. I'm sure there are still so many other factors that can contribute to the produce curse, so if you can think of anything, then do let me know in the comment section down below. Obviously, managing a K-pop group is never easy, and with I.O.I especially, they were literally the first group to ever come out of the Produce series. Not to mention, at the time, the K-pop industry had never even seen anything like Produce 101. So these companies had no blueprint, no past examples, no case studies to look back on, and I think it was quite understandable that they made some mistakes. So I'm definitely not judging them, and I don't think that I could do any better. But with IZONE's members' companies, I can only hope that they will take advantage of the benefit of hindsight and sit down and analyze I.O.I and WannaOne in even more detail than I did in this video, so that they can hopefully manage IZONE the best way possible. Okay, but let's end this video by talking about which members I believe are in the best position after IZONE's disbandment, as well as which members are most at risk of the Produce curse. Allegedly. Obviously, these are just my opinions based off the current situation, and things can change, so I'm interested to know if you guys agree with me, and if you don't, then do let me know your predictions in the comment section down below. So the members I believe are in the best position are definitely the Japanese members, who are expected to rejoin AKB48 and its sister groups back in Japan. AKB48 has to be one of the most fascinating groups I have ever seen, and I honestly really want to make a video on them, so do let me know if you guys will be interested. But essentially, AKB48 has to be the most popular group in Japan, so them not doing well or disbanding is literally not even a concern for these Japanese members. All Being in IZONE has done is to boost their international popularity and bring in a whole new wave of K-pop fans who are now going to take an interest in not just AKB48, but J-pop as well. Things also look great for Yuna, who's expected to join Everglow. And well, Everglow is obviously doing extremely well at the moment. On the other hand, the members I believe are most at risk are Chaewon, Minju, and Hyewon. Obviously, these are just my predictions based off the current circumstances, and things can change. You know, the company can take steps to improve their situation, so these members still definitely have a huge chance of being very successful in the future. Chaewon is most likely going to return to her label Woollim Entertainment and join their group Rocket Punch, which debuted in 2019. Although Chaewon really matches Rocket Punch's fun and bright concept, the group is unfortunately still quite underrated. Thankfully, Woollim doesn't seem to be giving up on them, and they are slowly building up a fan base, so hopefully they will gain more success in the future. Meanwhile, Minju and Hyewon both come from companies that have no experience managing girl groups. Hyewon is from 8D Creative, a food and beverage company that eventually expanded into the entertainment business. They currently manage a few artists, including Only One Of, but they have yet to debut their own girl group. Meanwhile, Minju's company Urban Works mostly focuses on acting and TV series productions. In fact, aside from Minju, the only other singer they manage is Krisha Chu, who, may I just add, is criminally underrated and definitely mismanaged. So that's a huge red flag right there. But thankfully, Minju is also the IZONE member who's most likely to transition into acting, which fortunately is what Urban Works specializes in. So that concludes my video. This is definitely one of the most opinionated videos I've ever done, and oh god, I hope I didn't offend anyone with my opinions. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, then please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And if you'd like to see me learn every single IZONE dance and then rank it from easy to hard, even talking about that makes me feel tired, then be sure to check out my previous video, which I'll be linking up here. Also, don't forget to check out my Patreon for bonus content. This time I was actually trying to explain the whole idea of Produce 101 and subunits to my mom, and I think our conversation was pretty funny. Please help me.
I give you only
Basically, yeah, okay. So basically, is that the first point I mentioned was the stop yawning. So the first point was like the uneven spotlight, right? So that's all on Patreon. And lastly, be sure to check out the quiz, which I'll be linking in the description box below. And I think that's about it. So I'll see you guys next time. Bye!